Hi, I am Opal Mitchell. I work for the Central Arkansas Library System and I work at the Nixon branch in Jacksonville. This is the Crafting with Opal program that we do about every other Thursday at 4 p.m. And today we're going to do a winter themed paint along on a tiny little canvas. This is something I found online, or a tutorial I found online. And I thought it was pretty neat since it was painted on such a small canvas. And I had one of these at home that I'd bought, I don't know, a year or so ago or two. Hey, Pat. And it was really neat. It came with a little easel that you could put it on to display it. And I thought it was really cool, and I had no idea what I was going to paint on it. And then I found this tutorial when I was trying to find some winter-themed paintings to do. So I thought, well, that would be pretty cute. And so I tried it out. The tutorial I followed online is like one of those that it doesn't really tell you everything that they're doing. They're just painting, and you don't even really see them mixing their paints and stuff together. So kind of have to decipher exactly what they're doing. But I think I did a halfway decent job figuring out how they did theirs. So anyway, if you signed up for supplies, you will have received a little canvas with a little easel to display it on. I actually got those through Walmart. That was pretty neat. It was a set of those that we were able to get through them. And you only end up needing a few different colors of paint. I'm going to describe the the paint that I dispensed into the little containers. I wrote different letters on top of them because the black and the blue look really close to the same color, and I didn't want y'all to get confused which color was which. So, and there's two things that look like white paint that you also got. There's a large container that's I think it's a 2-ounce container. It's the biggest one, and it has a G on top, and it looks like a white paint, but the reason it has a G on it is it's a gloss paint. It's a one that you use to mix with colors to help the paint from drying too quickly, and it helps blend colors together. So that's what the one that has the G on it. The one that says P, that stands for Prussian, and it's the Prussian blue paint that you got. It's a really dark blue color. And then one has a W on it, that's your white paint, and another one that has a B on it, and that's your black paint. So that's your kind of description of the stuff that you got. You are going to need a flat brush. It doesn't have to be super big. Mine's, I don't know, that's about an inch wide, maybe a little less, because you don't need a very big flat brush to paint this canvas because it's not a very big canvas. So any kind of large-ish flat brush that you have will work. And then you don't have to have a medium round brush like this. Hold my finger up to it so you can kind of see. It's not real big. You really don't have to have this one, but I'll use it at different times. A nice smaller color, small flat brush will be handy. That one you'll definitely probably be using quite a bit. And then one that you will definitely need is a small detail brush. That's going to be for the little tiny details we're going to be doing mostly on it once we get the background painted. I was putting my finger up against it so you could kind of see the brushes a little bit better. And if you have one of these to mix your paint with, that's great. If you don't, you can use your paint brushes to mix your paint. So that's not totally necessary. And another thing you will need is either some washi tape, which I just have some that I have from home. We included some washi tape in the supplies. It's not my favorite washi tape, and I don't know how well it's going to tape down to your stuff. So if you at home happen to have some masking tape or some painter's tape, that would probably work, or even better washi tape than what I gave you. Those will probably work better than what we gave you. That's all we had on hand, and I bought it for our watercolor class that we did, and it worked fine in the watercolor class, but I have a feeling it's not going to be quite sticky enough for what we're doing today, because we need it to stick a little bit, because you're going to be actually taping it across your canvas at one point to be able to get a straight line, and you're going to be taping it over paint. So I'm not real sure if that one's going to do real great for you. So if you do use the washi tape that I gave you, just be forewarned that it may not do a great job. If you dry your paint really good before you put it on there, and if you're real careful about not getting too crazy with how much paint you put on top of it, it might do all right. It won't be the end of the world if it doesn't do a perfect straight line. I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. See how at one point here you've got this nice little straight line. If it's kind of bumpy and not perfect, that'll be okay. That's all it's for. All right, so I'm going to switch the camera around to where we're going to be painting. Okay, so of course that's not what we want to look at. I'm going to have to tilt this. Alrighty. And I do not have my paint ready to go yet. I do have my little canvas, and I'm going to move this out of the way because we don't want to get paint on that. And I'm going to have to do, oh, it's gotten hung up on my chair, so I'm going to have to take that away. All right. And you're definitely going to need some water to rinse your brushes out on. So keep at least 2 or 3 of those handy. I'm going to get some of this blue paint. And you're really not going to be using a whole lot of paint for this because it's such a tiny little canvas. And so I'm just going to put a nice little glob of it here. If you are using your own paint at home and don't have this dark blue paint that I have, this Prussian blue paint, it's not the end of the world if you don't. You can use a little bit lighter blue paint and mix some black paint with it, but be very, very careful about how much black paint you add to it, because a little bit of black paint goes a long way in darkening paint, and it can make the paint pretty muddy looking really fast. So if you do have to do that, just add a tiny bit of black paint to it at a time. We're probably going to be using more white paint than anything else, so I'm going to put quite a bit of my white paint down. And then that gloss paint is what I've got is called a transparent mixing white, the one that I'm putting down. And I'm going to put it towards the bottom here. And I may use quite a bit of it too. It helps blend colors together. All right, so I've got all of my paints, my white and my Prussian blue, and then a little bit of black, and then the mixing paint. And I'm going to get my large brush wet, just dampen it a little bit. And let's see, I'm going to try to move things around a little bit better here so y'all can see. I want you to be able to see everything, but that's not going to be real easy. I'm going to shift around a few more things. All right. Gosh, I wish. All right, and I should have put my paint closer together. Okay, well, I'll keep the colors here that we're going to be using most often closer here, and adjust that just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to get a old washcloth to help wipe my brush on occasionally when I need it, and get my water a little bit closer. Okay, so we're going to start with getting some white paint on our canvas, and I'm just thinking we're going to need some lighter blue paint, so I'm going to mix a little bit of this blue off to the side, because I'm going to be starting with some background blue that's going to be quite a bit lighter color. So I'm going to go ahead and mix some of this darker blue to a lighter blue color. And like I said, you don't have to have one of these to mix your paint with, but it just keeps you from having to, like if you mix with your paintbrush, you're going to be cleaning your paintbrush pretty often. So I'm putting quite a bit of white paint in here. I'm going to grab quite a bit more. And you'll need several shades of this blue at different times. And I can easily grab more blue paint and pull it into this paint and make it darker. So I just wanted to start off with a really, really light blue color to begin with. And that way I can add more and more. I'm going to get a paper towel to wipe this off the end of this, because if I just lay this off to the side, I'm going to make a mess. All right. Okay, so I still got my darker blue, but then I've got a lot of lighter blue. And I need to move that away from it so it's not so. Okay, so I'm going to dampen my brush a little bit more and then kind of wipe it off. And I'm going to get just some white, and I want to put the white up in this area and towards the bottom of the canvas, because you want to start off, even though it's a white canvas, you want to start off with some white paint, wet paint on the canvas, so when we start doing some blending, it hopefully will still be a little bit white. We might have to use a little bit of that gloss paint too. I'm going to be getting all kinds of paint on my hands probably. So I'm just kind of covering my canvas with white paint. And I'm not getting this corner right here because I'm going to be using some of that lighter blue paint in the corner. Let's see, I need to get I kind of want to keep my example close by so we can see that we're going to be, what we're going to be doing with that. As far as, I'm going to get a little bit, I'm not even going to clean off my brush. So I'm just, oops, you are going to move around. So I'm just going to have all kinds of paint on my hands. Okay, so we're just going to, and see how that's going to be lightening up. Since I already had the white down here, just kind of a lighter blue since this was already white, and I'm just kind of blending it loosely, trying not to have any like when you stop your paintbrush across something, it'll leave a mark. I'm trying to do complete strokes where it's not leaving a mark on there. And I'm going to grab a little bit more blue because I want this corner to be kind of a darker blue. And this is going to be more of a layering technique. Let's see. And if you want to do the edges of your canvas, you can, but it's not necessary. Okay, so I'm going to have to wipe my fingers off. I wish I had something to hold that in place. All right, well, okay. And let's see. I'm going to get a little bit of this over here, even though I want it to be a lighter color. I'm going to just kind of blend it. Okay. And like I said, whenever you're doing the straight across you just don't want to stop and have like a straight line in there. Okay. So that's pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and, I think I'd better rinse off my brush a little bit because I want to start with doing some of this with, because my background needs a little more blue. Didn't want so much of that white. So I'm going to try to make it a little bit darker. I might have to paint the side of my canvas a little bit because I was getting kind of And if you ever have problems with it blending, you can add a little bit of that blending, that gloss paint in there. Okay, I'm having trouble trying to keep my paint from my hands messing up what I'm doing. Keep this a little bit because I have a little bit of a lighter blue down here, and I'm doing kind of a rounded stroke here. Alright, trying not to have some of the streaks. Once you get a nicer kind of, I'm getting kind of some streaks in it, so I'm going to add a little more blue. Oh, the whole thing's moving. I don't remember having all these problems at home with, I guess, holding my canvas in place. My other one, I think, was a little bit heavier canvas, so it didn't move around so much. All right, I'm going to grab mostly some white to lighten up this corner here, because we want this corner to be still a little bit blue, but a lighter white blue, or not. No, more of yeah, have more white in it. And I'm lightening it up just a little bit, and then I'm going to rinse it off. And we're probably going to need to switch over to a different brush, either a small flat, or the medium round would be helpful too. So I'm just going to get it wet and then wipe off the excess and get some white while this is still kind of wet. And I'm going to lighten this corner up even more. And I'm going to do kind of I want it to be blended more. I don't want it to have that little straight line that it had of where the white started and the blue began. And I'm just kind of doing a wiggling motion here to, and I'm going to get a little bit of the gloss to see if that'll help, and a little bit of the blue even, because I don't want it to be a dramatic change from blue to white right there. I want it to be more of a gradual change. Okay. I'm trying to see. I don't know how well y'all can see this. Okay. So I want that to be a little bit lighter white color, not so blue. You want it to get more wider in that corner the further you get away from the blue. So that's why having a little bit at the beginning is good, but to get a little more white each time to kind of blend. So it's more of a stark contrast, more of a brighter white. The further, because this is the light from where supposedly the sun is coming from. So I might even have to let that dry a little bit. I think piling that on top of there is having a hard time showing up. I'm getting my fingers wet so I can get some of this paint off my hands. And rinsing that off since I'm having to hold the side of the canvas. I'll wipe my hands off just a little bit. So I'm going to give that a moment to just dry just a little bit, and then I'm going to add a little more white paint in the corner. And if you have a blow dryer, you can help speed up that process too, as far as the drying of the paint. Let's see. I think I'm getting little pieces of hair on my canvas actually. I'm going to blow dry that just a little bit, because we're also going to be putting the washi tape on here in just a moment. But let me blow dry this. Oop. I'm going to blow away some stuff. Hold on. Well, that's not working. Okay. All right, I'm going to get my paint back over here. It was going to blow my paint all over the place. Oops, I just stuck my finger in the paint again. Oh well. It'll be all right. Try not to get that on the canvas. So I'm just trying to get my corner a little more brighter white. Alrighty, that's good. And I noticed I did kind of a rounded stroke here, and down here is actually going to be my ground, and I don't want my ground to have a curved look to it. So I'm just going to grab some more of this blue paint and try to straighten that out a little bit where it doesn't have those straight marks, because I don't need my ground to be quite like that. It needs to have more of a flat appearance to it. And it's going to be a bit of a hill, so I'm going to go up that direction a little bit. I'm going to grab a little bit of white and a little bit of that blending paint and work that all in together. Because it ended up being a little bit darker than what I wanted it to be. Because the sky can be different than my ground. Don't want it to be exactly. Get some more of that blending paint and some blue. Boy, this keeps moving on me. And I'll have to blow dry this again, because in order to put the washi tape down, you can't put it down on wet paint. Okay, so that has more of a smoother look to it than before. I'm going to get more of this is the blending paint. And And some of the blue. Okay. All right. I like that a little bit better because I wanted a lighter color down there. The sky is actually going to get darker here in a minute. Once we put the washi tape down, we're going to darken the sky quite a bit. So I'm going to rinse off my brush again, and then I'm going to blow dry. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way so it won't go flying everywhere. I'm going to blow dry this, and then I'm going to put my washi tape down here in a minute after I get this dry. And when you're using your blow dryer, don't ever use it on the hot setting. This one has a button you can push where it won't have any heat coming out. It'll just be air, because you don't want to use heat on the paint because it could discolor the paint, and you don't want to do that. Now I got to find out what I did with my washi tape. Oh, there it is on the other side of my water cup. All right, for this part, I think I measured this one where it was about 2 fingers high and then like about a thumb. I just did it kind of at an angle. Actually, I could I can't measure because I don't have, let's see, it's more like 3 fingers. Okay, so about 3 fingers up here and then a thumb on the corner. So that's how I'm going to angle my tape. So if I can get it pulled off of here correctly. You want a straight edge. Oh, goody. Well, only one side needs to be straight, and mine's not tearing correctly. Let's see. Let's try that again. Can't get it to start good. All right, so I want to start in this corner. Good, it's tearing, yay. All right, since it's tearing, I'm going to turn it over because I need the top edge to be my straight edge. All right, so I'm going to lay that down there and then hold my fingers. Maybe more at a little bit more of an angle. That's close enough. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, we just want an angle. Okay, so there's mine. I've got it down. And we're going to be painting along this top edge. That's why I put my fingers over it like that. I'm sorry, Pat, I just now noticed you had said you always do your edges. I try to do mine. I might kind of work on them a little bit later, I don't know. But right now I guess I'm not going to. All right, so we got basically the background, and we're going to want to do more of this darker color on the side. So if you want to use your flat brush, you could. If you wanted to use your round brush, you could. This part, it doesn't really matter. I'm trying to figure out what's in here so I can bring this down a little bit. I'm going to wet my brush and wipe off the excess here. And it'll probably be good to get some of your blending white on here too. I'm just going to kind of dot it across here to help it dry slower. And then I want my blue to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to dip my brush and get some of the darker blue and mix it in with this other lighter blue. And they're close enough together that these colors on my palette, then I can kind of mix them together. I want it to be slightly darker for this one. Not real dark, but just slightly darker. Let's see. So, and if it ends up being like that one's a little too dark, I'm going to grab a little bit of white too. I want it darker than my background. And I'm going to do kind of a blendy, blendy thing. I'm going to kind of just kind of move it around a little bit. The round brush might be better for this, and actually that's still not dark enough. So I'm going to add more blue. And I'm going to get it away from that one just so I don't mess it up. And you're just going for a darker blue than what you had previously. And on the edges, I'm going to be adding white to help it blend in with the sky a little bit. And I'm having a hard time not hitting the camera with my long paintbrush. I don't know if this is working as well as I want it to. I think I'm going to go back to my round brush. So I bet I'll have an easier time of blending. Yeah, that's working better. And I'm going to grab some more of that blending stuff because I don't want it to dry too quickly. Grab some more of the darker blue. And then as I go this direction, I'm going to add more and more white. Because you want it to transition into getting a lighter color. And I'm going to get some more of that blending. The blending white comes in handy a lot. All right. And as I go this direction, I'm going to be adding more and more white. I'm trying to keep it from drying on me too quickly so I can blend better. And I'm going to grab more of the blending white. If things aren't quite blending the way I want it to, I get more of the blending white to help with what I'm trying to do. And I can always come back with more white on the other direction to help with this. Okay. Okay. And it's trying to dry on me, actually. I'm having difficulties with that. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my paintbrush. And that helps it from not drying too quickly either, if you can add a little bit of water to it. The background's probably going to be the hardest part. And so, I don't like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have started with my blue up there. I was wanting to go with a lighter color, so I should have rinsed off my brush before doing that. So I'm going to go back into this little, just where it's almost white, it's got a little bit of blue, and kind of work on that a little bit, because it kind of got up in there a little further than what I wanted to. So I'm putting down some white and just kind of roughly mixing it in there, and then I'm going to grab some of that in-between blue and kind of mix it together. And occasionally grabbing some of that blending white too will help. Because I wasn't getting quite the effect that I wanted. And so, oh, this blue up here is trying to dry on me. So I think I'm going to have to mix some more. And that can be a problem too whenever your paint starts drying on you. Because I didn't pour a lot of paint down, so if you have a little bit of paint on your palette, it can end up drying on you faster than if you have more paint. I'm going to rinse my brush off because I was using it to blend my colors together. Okay, so I might have just waited a little too long. I think things started drying on me. But I did put some of that other white in there to keep it from drying quite so quickly. Okay. I still haven't gotten that quite as dark of a blue that I would like. So I'm going to just touch my brush in the blue and try to get, because I want this background to be a little bit darker blue. And get some more of my blending white to go with it. I'm just adding more and more blue. And the little wiggling effect kind of blends it a little bit. We're going to rewatch this tomorrow night and do ours then. Okay, that sounds like fun. I didn't read her whole message, but I'm sure y'all saw. Okay. And you may have to keep, if it's not quite doing the way you want it to, you may have to add, keep kind of going, because that's what I'm doing here, is it's not quite Ooh, and that's a lot of blue. You may have to kind of do more blending to get the darker look, because I was needing it to be a little bit more darker. And tapping kind of works well too. Okay, I think I lost a lot of my white, so I'm going to come back the other direction and try to fix that a little bit. So I'm going to come back with some of this white. I'm going to start in the white area first, and then slowly, ooh, my blue. Okay. I'm going to keep adding white to it. Okay, yeah, I think the tapping effect kind of helps too. You don't want it to be a perfect sky, but I do want this top edge to be really, really white though. Okay, so and I know this one's quite a bit darker than my other one. They don't have to be, you just want this corner to be a lighter color than the rest of this. And then once this dries, which I'll have to blow dry it again, I think while this is drying, I might try to do my edges just a little bit. And because you don't have to have your edges to be like everything else necessarily. Just kind of have some paint on it if you want to do them. And try not to get onto the canvas and mess up the stuff you've done. I'm just going to have some kind of blue up here. It doesn't have to be the exact same blue as everything else. I'm just going to get the blue that's kind of over there with the white. And then I'll have to get the rest of it later. Just kind of wanting the top of my canvas to kind of dry a little bit. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna blow dry that just a little bit. I better move this stuff out of the way before it blows it all away for me. You want it to be completely dry before you peel that off. So I don't care about my edges so much. So just peel it off very slowly so you can get a straight edge. There'll be a little bit of paint that might bleed over underneath it, which mine did, because I used a lot of paint. Okay. And if I want to lighten this up a little bit more, I can. It's just up to how you feel about that. And since my paintbrush is still kind of wet, I'm going to finish painting my edges real quick. Just kind of, it doesn't have to be any particular color really. Let's see. I'm just using different colors that I already had on my canvas, or my palette. And I'm going to get a little bit of water on my brush because it was getting a little bit dry. I'm just trying not to get it on the top of my canvas. I don't think my canvas is going to move around on me as much now because the stuff I'm going to be doing is not the whole canvas, so that's why I'm painting the sides, because I won't have to worry so much about touching those parts. Okay, so we've got that. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do the tree line here in the background, and you're actually going to be using a small paintbrush for that. If you want to lighten this up right now, this would be a good time to do so. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some white paint to my paintbrush. And actually, I'm going to do kind of a dry brush. I'm going to wipe the paint kind of off where it's not real. Let me wipe it off some more. I want to do more of a dry brush where it's not real heavy. I just want to add a little bit of highlight to this. And I'm not doing it all over. It just gives the effect of light reflecting off of the snow in different places. So it's not one smooth surface. Okay, all right, that's good. I'm going to rinse this brush off because from now on I'm going to be using my little detail brush. Okay, so that's done. And this little detail brush is kind of what I'm going to be using the rest of the time. So I'm going to get my brush wet. And for this part, I'm going to be using more of the dark blue, and I might even use this to do some more mixing. I'm put that over with my white. And I'm going to mix it because I want it to be a dark blue, but I don't want it the darkest blue. So I'm going to get some white mixing it in with it. Because it's going to be a darker blue that's kind of shadowy, a shadowy dark blue. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, that looks dark enough. You want it darker than your sky. So if you made your sky kind of dark, you might have to lighten it up a little bit for this to show up. Okay, I'm going to try to zoom. Oh, all right, well, let me move my canvas over so you can kind of see what I'm doing. This doesn't have to be really super good because this is going to be a background. So you're just going to be doing some little dots and building little trees in the background by just doing dots and by tapping. And they don't have to be perfect little trees because it is from a distance. So you're just going to be making a few of them, different size trees, some of them skinny, some of them fat, some of them, taller. So if we want a little bit taller one here, we can tap up and then tap down. And I'm going to get some more paint. And when you're loading your brush, if you roll it a little bit to roll off the excess paint, that'll give you more of a nicer tip to your paintbrush. Mine need to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to grab some more of the darker blue to mix in with what I was working with, because it needs to show up. And that's not showing up as good as I wanted it to. So let's see how dark. Yeah, that's a little bit darker. I'm trying not to hit the camera. Alrighty. I keep mixing paint, that's why you're not seeing me doing anything for a few moments. Alright, and then we can have a little tiny tree right there too. Just try not to go below that little tree line there. And I have a little bit more darker paint. Oops, I'm so sorry, I keep hitting the camera. Let's see. I'm gonna add a little, and you can do little breaks, like these are kind of together. So my next one I'm gonna do a little bit further away. And you just want little taps. And then if you want to tap upwards to get the tallness and then kind of fill out the tree a little bit, you can. I know right now they just look like little triangles, but once they dry a little bit and you add a little bit of white snow to them, they come together a little bit better. I feel like I'm going at an angle here because I'm having to angle my paintbrush to keep from hitting the camera. So let's see, I'll fill this one in a little bit better. And then I'm going to do an itty bitty one because sometimes there's some small ones. Alright. And this entire tree line, you don't have to have like a really whole bunch of them. We're only going to go up so far because we're going to have a big tree here. So I'll give another gap and have a slightly larger tree than the other ones. looks a little wonky. Okay, add some more paint to my paintbrush, and then have another one. Alright, I think I'll do maybe another one. I might even have to clean my paintbrush off because it looks like I'm getting dried globs of paint on there. So I'm going to rinse that off a little bit and get some more paint. I think I'll add a couple of smaller ones on there because I'm getting close. Well, I'm getting awful close to where my actual tree is going to be. So maybe one more very small one, and that might be it. Okay, yeah, I think I'm gonna leave that as is. While that's drying, we're gonna do our big tree right here. With this one, you're gonna use the really dark blue paint again. I'm gonna mix some more because it's gonna be a bigger tree, so I'm gonna put quite a bit of that in there. And we're really not going to use any of that black paint until the very, very end. I'm going to mix this in and make me a darker blue with just a little bit of white. Okay, so to make the tree, you're going to figure out where you're starting at. And I might have to zoom out a little bit so you can see. Okay, like with this one, I started somewhere about here. And you're going to make like a little dots all the way up to how tall you want your tree to be. So that'll be your starting point. So I want to start it about right here, and I'm just going to do a line to indicate kind of where my tree is going to be and how tall I'm going to have it. You could use your small flat brush for this even instead of this tiny one, which I'm probably going to switch over. And figure out about how tall you want to make it. I'm going to stop about there. This part will be a little bit slow to do if you do it with your tiny brush. We can go back and do the details with it though. So I'm going to get my flat brush, small flat brush, and wet it. And then get my blue, darker blue paint, and well, I'm going to try not to hit I'm going to scoot this over. I know I'm going to be on the edge here. Well, let's see here. I want to not hit the camera, so I might have to move up here. I'm still okay, I might have to angle the camera here. Hold on. So, in order to possibly keep this in, And I got mine awful close to the end of the canvas, which is not good because of how I want to do this. I'm going to get really close to the edge because I want mine to be kind of fat. And I'm tapping the straight lines here to go outwards. I'm going to kind of get a basic of my tree first. And then it's going to have to get tapered up here, so I'm going to tap down like this. To kind of, this is just the basics of my tree. I'm going to make it a little bit differently as I go. Okay, I'm probably going to have to get more paint. And I'm just putting a little tiny bit of white with this because I want it to still stay pretty dark. I am running out of room for my tree. I'm going to grab the rest of my blue that I had and mix it together with this white. I'm really hating my paintbrush right now because it's not... I'm having a horrible time. I might have to raise this up and then zoom in order to not hit. So, alright. And I'm going to try to straighten this up for you guys. Well, get the trash can out of the way. Alright, that looks a little more. Maybe I won't hit it. Okay, yes. Much better. And I'm not doing my tree quite like I did the first time. The first time I used the little tiny brush and I'm running out of paint. I'm going to get the end of my paintbrush wet and hopefully my paint will go a little bit further because it was getting way too dry on me. Okay, so I'm going to fill in my tree towards the middle here because we're going to be doing a lot of highlights here in just a minute. So my tree is not quite ending up the way I wanted it to. Because I want him to be quite a bit fatter. Okay, I've kind of fleshed him out a little bit more along the lines of what I wanted with the flat brush. And then I'm going to give it more detail with the small brush. So, I rinse off my brush. And actually, I think I'm going to use my medium round brush a little bit. Because that tiny brush is just a little too small for what I want to do. Okay, so I'm going to make him more like my other tree. and probably make him a little bit taller. Trying to make sure that he's still in. Because I want him to be kind of a fatter tree. More detail. I'm trying still not to hit the camera. Let's see. Trying to keep this where you can see it. This is so difficult. I don't have to worry about this when I'm at home. Okay, get a little more paint. I'm trying to give it a little more character. Because the trees that we're trying to be like, they're not like perfect the way that they look. And trying to make it more typical to what you would see. And I ran out of room on this side of the canvas for it to be the way I wanted it to. Okay, so this is an awful fat tree. I did not mean for it to be quite that big. All right, and we're gonna, if you want to have a smaller tree out towards the front of it, you can, like a little baby tree, like I did in this one, and like they did on their initial one. You can, if you want to, and it doesn't have to be very defined or very big. And you just do some little bit of tapping too for that one. Nothing real fancy. Okay, so there's my little tree. All right, so that's my tiny tree. I'm gonna rinse it off. Okay, so the background is probably dried now. And we want the big tree to dry a little bit because we're gonna be adding some snow and stuff to it. Okay, so now I'm going back to my detail brush, and I'm just gonna get tiny bits of white paint on the end of my paintbrush. And I'm just going to be tapping it onto the little trees that's background. And you're not going to be putting a lot, you're just putting a little bit here and there. And little smears are good instead of perfectly white dots. And if you don't want it all white, if you want to add just a tiny bit of blue to it, that's fine too, because the all white can be a bit much. So I went and tapped a little bit of other colors on there. So I think initially with mine, I add just a tiny bit of blue to mine and make it mostly white. But just a very small tinge of blue. And then I'll go back over and add some other blue to it. See, nothing fancy, just a little bit of dots here and there. And like I said, you can add a little bit of blue to that white and then go back over with a few more dots if you want to, that are a little bit a lighter color if you want, but you don't have to. And then you can do the same thing to your trees up here. I'm going to add some actual black to this one here in a minute to give it some more darker tones to it. I'm not too worried about the little bitty tree, but the black, or the big tree, I want to get some just plain old black. And hopefully it hasn't dried on you while it was sitting there, like mine did. And it's just plain black. And you're going to do touches like just little blots of black here and there. It can be little lines of it. Just within the tree. And we're going to come back over with some white, doing the same thing. It just gives some shadow effects to it. And under the eaves of some of the branches would be good places to put it too, because that's where some of the darker shadows would be. Okay. And if you wanted to put a few dots on that little tree, you could. Okay, that's good. And we'll do a little bit of shadowing around the base of the tree, and I think I'm going to do that right now while the black is drying on this. We want to give a little bit of a shadowing. So I'm going to see if any of my other paint, let's see. You want some white that's got some blue in it. That's a little bit darker than your actual snow area. So I've got some I'm going to just kind of mix together on, I'll move that down a little bit. See, I still have quite a bit of colors, so I'm just going to mix some of those together until I get a little bit darker blue than what's on that my snow is. Just a little bit, not a whole lot. And I'm gonna wipe it on my palette here to see. I don't want it real dark, so I'm gonna add a little bit of white to it. I just want it slightly darker than my snow. So let me see if this is slightly darker. So actually that's lighter. So I'm gonna have to play with that just a little bit more. Did I get one that's darker? Yeah. So I'm just going to lightly brush around the base of my tree. And you think of where you're, unfortunately you can't see the back of my tree. If you could see the back of my tree, I would be putting a lot of the shadow around that part. And that's what I did on my first one. As you can see, I did some darker color behind it. But since you can't see behind the tree now, I can't really do that. So I'm just going to put this around the base of my tree. And then behind my little tree. Oh, I got everything moved around where you can't see what I'm doing. Oh, that's not darker. So just a little bit of a shadow behind the tree. And then if you get it a little too dark, you can always add a little bit of white. Oops. Kind of mix it in. And I'm going to go a little bit of white over here too, to mix it in. So it's not showing up so much. Just blending. Alrighty. So that's got my shadows on that. And so now I just need to do some white on my tree. And I'm going to do some of the blue and the white together where it's not just the bright white. Because that usually shows a little too much. So I'm going to, like on what looks like the tops of some of the edges of the tree, where snow kind of will gather. I'll do that. And then you're going to just put some different little glops of it in other places. And you're just kind of tapping it on there. And you don't want it to be like exactly the same all the way around. And I'm going to wipe my brush so it's not. Sometimes you want it to be on there, but you don't want it to be real heavy. And the other times, if you're trying to get more of a whiter effect, then. So I wiped off some of it so it will be a little more smeary. Because sometimes you do want it to be kind of smeared and not real dark. So whenever you want a little less, and you're just going to be doing little lines here and there like it's on branches and in different angles. I got my tree a little too fat, so it's going to be a little more difficulty to give it more depth. So you want some highlights here and there, but then not so much in other spots. And shaking and wiggling your brush kind of helps a little bit too. I do not like the way this tree turned out. But I'm not gonna worry a whole lot. Okay, you can see the big difference in, I'm going to zoom out so you can kind of see a difference in the two that I did. I never end up with the same thing both times. Alright, so you can see that it can end up quite a bit different, and when you zoom away from it, it doesn't, you're a lot more critical of it whenever you're close on it. But the main thing is you just want to have a lot of different little, I should have done it a little bit more like this where it had more pieces coming off to the sides like that. I ended up making my tree way too fat because I got it too close to the edge of my canvas. So try to avoid that if you can, like I did. And you can always come back with a little bit of white paint on the snow areas too, to give it more highlights and stuff. And that's what I'll probably do on mine too, because you don't want this area to be totally exact same color. So adding some highlights here and there, and then also not being real like I added some water to that just then to blend it out a little bit. And give it a little more not so flat looking to the snow. So you can go back and do little things like that to it and add little highlights here and there, and to make it look a little more like real snow and stuff. So it'll have a little more depth to it and so forth. So you can do that too if you want to, and I guess that'll be this. I'll be done with this one here this time. If you, like I said, if you want to add more shadows and different things like that, you can to the edges, so your tree doesn't look so perfect looking. Like there's going to be a little bit of snow around the base. I didn't really put any around the base of it so much, which I probably should have, because the bottom is not going to be a straight line. So, and then also do not forget to sign your canvas. I signed mine with a lot darker one on that one. The really dark blue color would probably be a good idea to sign it with, so it would show up. I don't think I have any really dark blue left, probably, on mine. I think all of it's kind of dried up, actually. And black would probably not be a good color to use to sign it with, I don't think. Let's see here if I can sign mine real quick. Oh, someone's not happy out in the library. I hear a little girl crying. Yeah, my paint is pretty dry. I think I'm gonna be able to sign it. Nope, not very well. All right, that's close enough. I'll fix that later. Okay, next month for crafting with Opal, we are going to do, let's see, on February 13th, we're going to do a Valentine's Day card, and it's going to be a combination of quilling and watercolors. We're going to do the background with watercolor, and then the main card of it is going to be with done with quilling. And then February 17th, we're going to be doing a heart-shaped painting. So that will be the Crafting with Opal next time. So I hope you'll join me then, and you can always call to sign up for those. I should have the sign-up sheets probably ready, if not tomorrow, beginning of next week. So that's it for this time. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed the craft. Bye-bye.